Cheryl Turner, Alex Quigley, Tom Dobbie, and Jamie Falconberry. If I missed any CSAB members, please let me know now. All right, well, that gives us a quorum, so if we would like to start, Chair Quigley, we can go ahead and start.
Ashley, I see Sherry's name up here.
Oh, okay, Sherry's up there now, yep, got her.
I missed the question, sorry.
That's okay.
All right, we're ready to start. Morning, everyone. Welcome to a special call meeting of the Church School Advisory Board. We'll go ahead and get started with our Pledge of Allegiance. If Sherry, if you could say the Pledge of Allegiance for us.
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Thank you. At this time, I will read our ethics statement.
Chair Quigley, do we want to approve the agenda first?
Oh, yeah, sure. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the agenda today. We're going to basically talk about some amendment requests as well as the charter application revisions. Any discussion on the agenda? Okay, do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the agenda as proposed.
This is Lynn Kroger, I second that.
Great.
Aye.
Properly moved and seconded. All in favor will do a voice vote.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Great. Agenda's approved, so we'll take a moment to read the ethics statement. Board members are reminded that it is our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and the appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of the advisory board. Does any member of the advisory board know any conflict of interest or any appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before us at this meeting? If so, please state them for the record. During the course of the meeting, you become aware of an actual apparent conflict of interest. Please bring the matter to the attention of the chair. It will then be your duty to abstain from participating in discussion on the matter and from voting on the matter. All right. And now, just reading our mission statement. The Charter School Advisory Board works to ensure the existence of high-quality charter schools in North Carolina. At this time, I hand it over to Ms. Beccaro for amendment requests.
Okay, good morning, everyone. We have two amendment requests this morning. They are both from RTO schools. The first one I'm going to present is from Doral Academy, and you are all familiar with the previous CSAB meeting. We had a discussion about their enrollment projections, and the school's location is unable to hold the originally projected 500 students. They also were not, regardless of that, they were not also meeting that projection. So they have come back with an enrollment amendment, and so let me show you what they are presenting today. And there's also a weighted lottery amendment, so I'm going to go ahead and do this together. So actually the weighted lottery, let's just start with that. That is a fairly standard weighted lottery like we've seen from many other schools. As you know, this school will be located in Wake County, and they have set a goal of enrolling 50% economically disadvantaged students. The first year, the school is serving grades K to 3, and then they will expand one grade level each year until reaching 8th grade. And the school's mission and curriculum is STEAM-based, so they hope that they are able to provide that type of education to a diverse student body, including at least 50% economically disadvantaged students. We will work with the school, well, we have worked with the school to make sure their policy is in line with best practices and law regarding weighted lotteries. So that is part of this amendment, is weighted lottery amendment. The second one that we spoke about last meeting was the enrollment decree. And you can see here on the screen that they have come back with an enrollment request of 270 students. So it's original 500 students. And it's just for this first year of operation, which in this case is actually year 2 of the charter because they were in a delayed year. There are online representatives from the school. If you have more questions or if you'd like an update on enrollment, they are available to speak to you. Are there any questions for me at this point, or would you like to hear from the school representatives?
Let's go ahead and hear from the representatives.
Okay.
Thank you. This is Douglas Rodriguez. I'm one of the board members for the Doral School in Wake County. I wanted to give the board an update, and I appreciate you allowing us to come back to you. 2 weeks ago, our enrolled number of students was 163. Since that 2 weeks, we are now at 203 fully enrolled students, with now 343 applications to the school. With the amendment to 270, the 203 puts us exactly at 75% enrollment. We've picked up an additional 26 new applications over the last 2 weeks, and we have issued new budgets, break-even budgets at the number 203 and 275, and we've also included enrollment reports. The school principal, assistant principal, and one other board member are also on. If you have any questions. So the school is certainly enrolling, has had a substantial increase in enrollment over the last 2 weeks, and we are continuing to enroll. In addition, there will be additional letters of acceptance that will be sent out next week for students that applied over the last 2 weeks, and that has been 26 new student applications over the last 2 weeks. I'll take any questions for me or the principal or any other board members that are on. Thank you.
This is Cheryl. Can you tell me what's your plan to go from 270 to 625 in a year? And if the reason you're doing this is because the facility isn't big enough, what's the plan for the facility as well?
So we currently have a 2-year lease on the facility. The facility is larger than the space we have currently leased. We have a 2-year option to buy the facility, so next year in year 2, we can go and either lease additional space in the facility or buy the facility and then take additional. There are other classrooms in the building, but what we were initially given was this part of the building that holds about 325 students. So we can make room in year 2 to increase the enrollment substantially.
Chairman Kruger, this is Dave Machado. Do you mind if I ask a question?
Of course, Dan, of course.
Mr. Rodriguez, why during the application process or the RTO process that you've been through, did you not state, why did you not tell us that this facility could only accommodate 325 students? You notified us at an awful late point. Can you explain what your process was?
Thank you, Mr. Machado, for your question. Absolutely. So we originally had a facility that would have accommodated the number of students. We were not able to come to terms and agreement on that facility. So it took us a bit of time to get to the current facility that we're at. And that's why there was a late notification. I should add that the facility that we're currently on is nearly 50 acres. It's a really large piece of property on Destiny Drive, so it has a lot of room to expand. But that's the reason that we came to late, and we apologize for that, Mr. Machado.
Alex, if I can follow up on that, this is Sherry. So, Ms. Rodriguez, you're in a year delay. Excuse me, you're in a year delay. And is that because of facility issues last year?
Yes, ma'am. That was because of facility issues, yes.
And it just took you a while to find an appropriate facility this year?
It did, yes, ma'am.
This is Cheryl. What's your recruitment plan to be able to get to 50% economically disadvantaged? And of the 203 students that you currently have, what level of disadvantage are those students?
So, I'm not sure that we have that information yet, but let me turn that over to, Ms. Echenice. Do you have the numbers? Are you able to get those numbers of economically disadvantaged? She's the principal.
Hi, good morning, everybody. This is Ms. Achanis. So we've been working right now with the community, holding a lot of events. We're listening currently from a church, and we've gotten to know their congregation. It just seems like they service a lot of their community are economically disadvantaged families, so we're hoping to team up with them. We've partaken on some of their activities to be able to use that as recruitment. We are fairly close to Beaver Dam, which is a public school that has their demographics is about 68% of students on free reduced lunch, and they are at capacity. So being at close proximity to them, we are hoping to also feed off of the students they are unable to hold and offer our education to those students that cannot attend Beaver Dam. In addition to that, we have, as part of our amendment and our proposal, was we want to create partnerships with local libraries and other community business owners to be able to promote that we are giving that, or we plan to give that bigger pool on our lottery system to economically disadvantaged families. We are also offering a before and after care program because we understand that a lot of these families have working parents that work really early and until really late. So we want to be able to accommodate those students for the hours that they need to be on campus while still giving it, rather than just babysitting, aftercare, or before care, an enrichment program within it. And that way they're still seeing that STEAM education model that we have in our school.
And I wanted to ask, I know that there was a question about the late date providing the facility. I went back and just took a look. We did bring an amendment to board in December, and that's when the facility amendment was passed for the new facility, just to give you an idea of timeline.
And Mrs. Chair, this is Helen Parley. Has the school thought about Juneteenth celebrations to be able to get the school's name out as you participate and or sponsor? And also you mentioned a goal of approximately 50% of the disadvantaged, economically disadvantaged. Is that going to be exactly 50% or up to 50% of your enrollment?
Ms. Echenice?
Yes, I'll take that. So it would be exactly 50%, or more. So we have it stated as at least 50% economically disadvantaged. That's the wording that we have. And can you repeat the question about sponsors for me, please?
Yes, I was thinking, have you considered Juneteenth celebrations? If you're familiar with Juneteenth, where the history goes back to, especially in Texas, when a lot of slaves were freed and did not know it. And many towns celebrate calling it Juneteenth, where many black churches and other organizations get together to celebrate. And that will be a great opportunity for you to maybe set up tables or sponsor to let those persons know about Peak.
That's a great idea. I had not planned anything of that sort, but I'm glad you brought it up because we will definitely look into it. So far, what we have done is any events that our local nearby churches and parks have done, we have taken part of it and either rented a space to put our tent, or I know one of the things that we did for the church is we sponsored during the colder weather months, we sponsored a coffee truck that they had come in, and we set up outside, and we were able to spread the word. And that's how we were able to get out there and start our recruitment process. But I do love that idea, so we will definitely look into it.
And just to piggyback off of that, I'm sorry, I'm the assistant principal, Ms. Carson of the school. We actually have a uniform fitting scheduled for June 17th and 18th, and I just looked up the Juneteenth is the 19th, so we can possibly add that in there. We also have a kickoff to summer with our fully enrolled students on June 5th at a local park. So thank you so much for bringing up that idea. We'll definitely look into it, as Principal Ashani's mentioned.
Fantastic. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you. I also wanted to mention with the uniform fitting that the assistant principal brought up is to be able to service his families better. We have taken on the task to provide a free uniform package to our enrolled students, and we think that it's one way to give back to the community and to set our students up for success at the beginning of the school year. So we want to make sure that when they come into the campus, they look the part with their uniform, so we know that comes at an added cost to the families. So we took on the task to initiate that with a package for all of our enrolled students.
Okay, so just to clarify, you want to lower the number to 270, and you're at 20, what? What was the number that we're at?
We are at 203 is our current enrollment, and that is 75% of that 270 being our goal.
That's exactly 75%.
And as board member Doug Rodriguez stated earlier, we are open still. Our enrollment is ongoing. We have about 26 applications that came in within this last week. Those acceptances have not been sent out yet, so we are hoping that enrollment will continue to grow as we do all of these activities that we have planned out within the next month.
Okay. So I guess the question now is kind of board members, what's the pleasure of the board in terms of this? I mean, we don't have to act on it, Dave, or staff could give me clarity. We're not gonna act on this until week after next, is that right?
That is correct. Today was for an update from Doral. Ashley, would you prefer that we get the weighted lottery approved today, or do it all in our June CSAC meeting?
I think I would like to do them together. It's on the CSAB agenda. I mean, it's on the state board agenda for next week. So I'm thinking we would probably want to vote on both of them if we could. This wouldn't be the right to open vote. This would just be a vote on whether you are okay with the amendment for weighted lottery and for the enrollment decrease.
Ashley, can I ask a clarifying question about the weighted lottery? I know they stated that the goal is at least 50% and more, but they really couldn't answer the question about how many of the current enrollments fit criteria. So with the weighted lottery, is there like a time span that becomes the goal?
Well, a lot of times our schools will, they will get approval to implement the weighted lottery ahead, like maybe a year prior. So for example, a lot of our if our schools don't have enough kids to actually run a lottery, which has been the case with schools, then there's really not a good way for us to know for that initial school year until maybe they start getting kids enrolled, and then they start seeing, if students are signing up, for example, for free or reduced lunch. But that's not unique to the school. That is just kind of part of the process when they don't have a lottery that first year, or until they actually have enough kids to run a lottery. And then we have a better idea of how many are actually getting enrolled through that weighted lottery. And if the school is an NC access school, then they also get like additional kind of monitoring to see where they are in terms of reaching those goals. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does. And ultimately, if someone doesn't meet the goal, is there, any, repercussions, I guess?
Well, I think, I don't know in terms of NC access. I mean, I'm sure it's a big part of, that's a big part of their goal. But I think as we become more accustomed to schools having weighted lotteries, it's definitely something we can consider in terms of looking at renewals. And if, we haven't had so many, it's a more popular recently procedure. So I think as we get more accustomed to schools having it, it's definitely something we can look at in terms of renewals and look back on their amendments and say, you're approved for a weighted lottery. You set this goal when you set up your weighted lottery. What is your data looking like now? And that's definitely something we can monitor and review.
And Sherry, as far as the NC Access grant, if a school is not coming close to their targeted EDS population that they stated in their NC Access application, then that would affect the disbursement of funds. But we would not release as much funds as we had agreed to if they were not meeting those goals. So that's another way for us to monitor it.
Yeah, that's great. I know it has become a very popular, strategy, if you will, recent, and, maybe because of the NC Access Grant. And a lot of the questions aren't specific to Doral, but just wanted to make sure that, this is not something in name only, that it is something that, if a school says they're going to institute that, they are trying to institute it, and that we are monitoring to make sure that that's staying in effect.
Okay. What's I guess at this point, just any further discussion? Okay, I guess then what we would say is this group, we'll take this up next month, and then, you'll please be ready with an updated enrollment report.
Okay, Alex, I don't think we can do that if it's going to the state board next week and we don't wait till the week after.
But I thought we had, okay.
I would suggest, Dave, that you vote on this amendment, and you will, remember, you'll come back in June and vote for final RTO status. So if for some reason the school is not where they need to be for RTO, this amendment basically, becomes moot. But it would make more sense to vote for it now. That way we can bring it to state board. I think it would just make things cleaner and less confusing for the state board.
And I agree with that also, Karen, I think we should vote on these two amendment requests today.
Great. All right. Let's go ahead and vote then.
I'll make a motion that we, accept the amendment for a weighted lottery for Doral Academy.
Any other comments, seconds?
Do we also need a motion to accept the amendment for reduced enrollment?
I'm sorry, Cheryl, and, to reduce the enrollment for year one.
Any other comments, seconds, that?
Sherry, what is that? Can you state the amount? Is the 325, is that what's in the amendment request, Ashley?
270.
I was gonna say, I think it's 270. Let me clarify my, motion. I make a motion that we approve the amendment for a weighted lottery and a decreased enrollment to 270 for year one for Doral Academy.
Other comments, seconds?
Okay, properly moved to second. Any discussion?
This is Lynn Kroger. My only request would be maybe at our next meeting to actually see a reduced budget with the 270.
They have submitted that. It should be in the packet of materials online on eBoard. But if not, Lynn, I can definitely get that to you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll do a voice vote, or not a voice vote, a call, individual
Roll call.
roll call.
Roll call, yes.
Roll call vote, that's correct.
Terry Stoops,
Aye.
Bruce Graham. I think he's absent actually. Okay, Lynn Kroger,
Aye.
Hilda Parlay,
Approves.
Sherry Reeves, Cheryl Turner,
Aye.
Alex Quigley,
Aye.
Todd Patty.
Aye.
All right, it passes unanimously, and Doral, we will be in touch about state board, and then of course keep up with your RTO work, and at June, the June CSAP meeting, we will hear from you again, and look forward to getting an update.
Thank you to the board, and thank you, Ashley, appreciate it.
Okay. All right. We have one other enrollment request. So Asheville Peak Academy is also one of our RTO schools, and they are scheduled to open up in Asheville in August. They are scheduled to be a K-8 school with 400 kids at capacity, so it's a fairly small school. They are seeking an amendment to their enrollment, and I will explain a little bit about why this is coming a little bit later in the process. I had had conversations with the original founding principal, who no longer is there, and was under the impression that they would have a slightly smaller enrollment target than originally expected, but I was thinking at a few students, in which case usually I just recommend that they adjust it in CSADM. But then in addition, the last enrollment report showed that they were over the 75%, but apparently there was a miscommunication, and that was actually applications. So our office didn't catch that they were under the 75% of enrollment. So after clarifying things with them last week and this week, we decided it made more sense that they needed to come for an amendment. So they are seeking a reduction from 128 to 102. So that is 26 students. They have submitted adjusted budgets. They're fairly tight budgets, but they have submitted break-even and regular budgets for those numbers. The reasoning the school has explained to us is that the classroom sizes ended up being smaller than they had anticipated, and so they cannot fit the number of children in each classroom as they had wanted. And then in addition, with taking into considerations of possibly having to do social distancing, there's also those concerns. So it would just be for year one, and again, it's a reduction of 26 kids. And I believe we have, yes, I see some representation on the line from the school, if you have questions for them or if you have questions for staff.
Yes, good morning, Mr. with Asheville Peak Academy. Alex, I have a question. So what's changing in the facility between year one and year two that the classrooms will be able to hold more kids?
Good morning. So we actually are using the first floor, and we're building construction on the second floor. It's not available as of yet, and that was one of the reasons why we moved to lower class size, because we didn't have access to the entire building. And we are
You're not going to be able to put little people on the second floor anyway. So
no, there's a ground level floor. So the way the building works, there's two kind of ground level access floors and then an upper level floor. We don't as yet have the access to the third. In our lease, we have the first and two ground level floors. We are working to secure the entire building. But for now, for our year one and year two, we will have access to both floors, where the kindergartners can at least access the first floors, and the lower grades could access the bottom floor. But
Okay,
you
but
could
then
have full access to both of them.
but if you're still going to use the classrooms that you currently have, in addition to additional classrooms, but you're going to, how are you going to increase the class size in year two if they won't fit in year one? If you're
So
using
we
the same
actually have
classrooms.
additional space that will accommodate another classroom, and we probably come back before you, and well, if we have to, and not do three kindergarten class. This year we're doing three kindergarten class instead of two, and so next year we would increase to, we'll only have two kindergarten classrooms.
And Mr. Chair Hill, if I may, I have a question. Was this building toured before you decided to use it?
Yes, it was.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I guess I'm a little concerned that this hasn't really been thought all the way out, and that we're going to see a need for an amendment in the future years. I would have expected that it would have at least been thought all the way out through the first 5, instead of just making a change to the first year and then not really having a plan yet for what happens later. Well, we might have 2 classes, or maybe if this is the building you're going to use, I would think you'd have thought that all the way through by now.
Yes. So maybe I'm just not clear on the plan, because we definitely have a plan before we decided just to change our enrollment numbers. We also assumed that the bottom floor, we would have time to have it configured, but that put us back a little bit. And I will ask Meredith to chime in, because the space or the facility provides ample growth opportunities. We're just using what we have currently available to us in order to make sure that the school opens. Meredith, feel free to jump in and add anything I might not have captured correctly.
Yeah, and I'll just add that, with these numbers being crucial for our RTO ready to open figures, the guidance we had received was to go ahead and submit this year one amendment before submitting that longer term 5-year amendment, just to make sure that we're able to meet our 75% open.
Also, we were taking COVID into consideration when we reduced the enrollment numbers as well.
Sharon, are you feel okay with this?
I mean, it is what it is. I'm not convinced that there's really a plan. Because now it sounds like, well, we reduced the numbers because we didn't have 75%, and so we needed to get the numbers down to where we had 75%, which isn't the same thing as our facility won't hold people. And so, no, I'm not feeling great about it, I'll tell you. But,
do we actually have 80% now, Meredith?
That's correct.
So we're
80% of 100, but 80% of 102.
That's correct.
So, my question, what exactly is your current enrollment?
Our current enrollment is 82 completed enrollments. And let me see. Yeah, we're at 82 complete enrollments.
And then we have 7 that were added from the wait list that are still pending, and we admitted them in the last 2 weeks. So it usually takes family, honestly, a few days to get all of their information in a timely manner.
82 is only 2 above the state minimum. That's concerning.
Y'all were higher than that before, correct?
Yeah, so there was a bit of a miscommunication. Our system allows families to confirm their seats before they're taken into the enrollment portal. So we were that, reporting an enrollment meant a family had confirmed their seat. And there's just, a little bit of extra time needed for families to go from confirming their seat to completing all of their enrollment documents.
Right, so you have 82 enrollment packets that are complete with birth certificates and things like that.
Yes, that's correct.
And how many do you have confirmed without packets complete?
Confirmed without packets. So we have admitted a few families in this last week who still have pending applications. I believe we're at 100 or 99 confirmed seats.
And what's Ashley, can you scroll up so we can see the spreads? Well, does the spread match what you have on your chart here? Like, are the kids evenly distributed?
Yes.
So you have enough for 2 kindergarten classes?
So we have enough for the 3 kindergarten classes represented by that 54 number with a small wait list. And then first and second, we have 1 open seat in each grade, so we're at 23 in each grade. And we have a recruitment plan for the summer with our newly announced school director. We have plans to get out in the community and continue that recruiting so we can build a stronger wait list.
Okay. Is part of the okay. Any other comments from the board? Okay, I think the challenge that I have is just schools that are treading that line of 80 it's really hard to stay above the threshold that you actually need to have in order to meet the statutory minimum. So it's just a little bit concerning.
It is, and may I add, because the dynamic of Asheville is so different and unique about building trust and space and community, that we could easily probably accommodate another 4th grade classroom. But many people are, of course, uncomfortable with moving their children out of a system into another system if they're already started. So I think as we build and grow, we will have the capacity to expand. But we had to cut off our kindergarten enrollment.
But you can't have 4th grade without 3rd grade, so is that what you mean?
Or we didn't have, the way the room was designed, like we had ability to accommodate 3 kindergarten classroom square footage. And yes, you're correct. We cannot have 4th without 3rd.
Okay, board members. Thoughts on Asheville Peak?
Is the statutory minimum 80 or 90?
80.
Because even though they have enrollments, you know that there are going to be people who don't show up. They're going to be close.
Alice, my question is, are we doing an amendment because the application number's low or because the space is too small? Or is it a combination? I think did we discuss them last month in RTO as far as enrollment number?
You did not, Sherry, and that's kind of how this flew under the radar, because the enrollment chart that was submitted to our office for RTO stated 100, and so that met the 75 threshold, but that's because they were, one, they were using applications, and then also I think they were already using the 102 number instead of the 128.
Alex, I'd make a motion that we accept the amendment. If they don't have the numbers in July, RTO will stop them anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree too.
That's what I was thinking. It's like, I think that it's obviously not, they're not in a delay, which is good. I think I would just impress upon the director of operations, and I believe it's the board chair, Meredith, and is it Tiffany? This is precarious because what we've seen, you have to build in, generally, statistically, schools open, if you go pure statistics, schools open with 70 to 75% of the first of the number of enrollments that they have projected to us at this juncture. So now, that means some schools open with obviously more, and some have far less. But just pure data, you have to kind of plan for 30% of the students to not show up, or if you're being conservative, fairly conservative, but not crazy conservative. So I think there's and once you drop below that 80 number of 80 students, obviously you have a statutory issue, but then you just have a financial. It just becomes incredibly difficult to float the school financially. You're in the access program, so that's good. But I think just locking down with the new executive director or principal that you've hired and really getting those enrollments is going to be really important.
Yes, that's absolutely understood, and that is our priority moving forward.
This is Todd. I would second the motion.
Yeah. Okay, so properly moved and seconded to approve the amendment. Any further discussion? All right, so we'll do a roll call vote.
Okay, Terry Stoops.
Aye.
Bruce Friend. Bruce Friend. Lynn Kroger.
Aye.
Hazel Parlay.
Approves.
Sherry Reeves. Aye. Cheryl Turner.
Aye.
Alex Quigley.
Aye.
Todd Godby.
Aye.
All right, it passes unanimously. And again, Pete, just continue with the RTO process and with getting your enrollments up, and our office will be in touch with you.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, we are going to move on to our last agenda item. This is a discussion of the 2022 proposed timeline. So last meeting, we had a presentation by Melanie Rockley regarding the 2022 timeline, and since those got feedback and some more thought and discussion about it, we've made some changes to that to take in consideration concerns about summer capacity. So Melanie, if you're ready, you can go ahead and walk the board through these changes.
Good morning, Ashley. Yes, what's on the screen though is actually our previous version, but I can actually speak to the new 2020 model.
Let me see if I can find the new one.
Okay.
No, this looks like the same. All right, let me pull up that PowerPoint you sent this morning.
the recent one again as well.
Okay.
Melanie, can you describe the new timeline on the PowerPoint that's showing right now?
There, I got it. Is it set now?
Okay.
Absolutely. Good morning. This is Melanie Rackley with the Office of Charter Schools. And so what I plan to do right now and up for your consideration is the 2022 timeline. So what I plan on doing is just going through the itemization of the new proposed timeline and then follow up with a comparison of the current timeline and some of the new features. So up first, you'll see that the open window for applications for 2022 would run from the end of January through the end of April. So this gives us about 90 business days to keep that application cycle open. Okay, and in tandem with that, we look at March. We would still be completing the remnants of the 2021 cycle, followed by the April 22. There would really be no agenda items for CSAB to consider in April unless the state board sends recommendations back to you all. We would then move on to May. And what's really good about this window is that once the application closes on April 29th, the May would be used, as would the subsequent months through August to kind of serve as a review period. So in May, we would conduct our completeness checks, and then the application evaluations would begin. A highlight of this would be that this review period, May through August, would serve as a time for OCS to conduct the internal and external evaluations. This will allow us more operational time to do evaluator trainings, capacity interview trainings, also to schedule the OCS and CSAB interview calendar. So from May through August, that would serve as the review evaluation period. There would be no interviews in those months. So that would give us ample time to actually sit with the applications. In September, the applications for the 2022 cycle would commence. We would have to prioritize any of the accelerated interviews during these months of September. If there are any additional accelerated applications, then October would be reserved for that if needed. Otherwise, the standard timeline interviews would commence in October. We would really continue to interview through November. In December would be the final month for CSAB interviews. So this includes, this is a 4-month period that would include the first round, accelerated, and second round applications. Then in January, the recommendations would go to state board for discussion with a vote in February. And then March would be reserved for reconsideration of any recommendations sent back to CSAB. If you would shift, Ashley, to the other slide.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you may. Sorry. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that 4-month period gives you guys longer to review. When do we get access to them?
So that's included in that. That's included in that period. So access to those applications would essentially be in May. CSAB would have access to the applications as well as the internal OCS evaluators and the external folks. So you all would have access to that throughout that 4-month period.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And so this is a comparison view where we look at the current timeline and what the proposed timeline would do. So again, currently our application application cycle is open for approximately 60 calendar days. With the new proposal, we would have 90 calendar days for applications to be received. So this would also shift away from the summer months. And then with the only note that the potential for the remainder of the 2021 interviews to occur in February and March, based upon the unknown volume of applications we will receive in the upcoming 2021 cycle. So additional application time, then the review period. Again, right now, what we look at with the review period, it ranges from less than a month to 2 months. So when we actually close our application window in late July, if we have accelerated applicants, those applications have to be turned around quickly to allow for evaluations ahead of the September CSAB meeting. So, and then for all other applications are typically given until at the latest October to complete, the evaluation. So, with the new proposal, again, May, June, July, and August would serve as that review period. So it kind of maximizes the time that we have to turn around the applications. The other change would be in the interview months. Currently, we used an allotted 6 months for interviews in the 2020 cycle. I believe we started in September and we ran all the way to February. With the proposed timeline for 2022, all application interviews would be done within a 4-month period. With this shift, this may mean including additional days for CSAB in order to meet all of the interview capacity slots within a 4-month timeline. The other feature to actually consider is the RTO planning year. Like with the current timeline, there's 14 months for standard with 5 months for the accelerated folks. The proposed timeline would increase the RTO planning to 16 months, and then the accelerated folks would be granted a 6-month planning period. So I just gave some historical details based upon our last cycle. It looks like for 2020, State Board approved the accelerated applicants in January for schools slated to open in 21. So it kind of gives you how many months were provided in our last cycle, and then it shows you, based upon the proposed timeline, how many months would be available if we were to shift to this proposal. So I just want to open up if there's any questions right now.
Melanie, you know the problem. I like this. I really do. Because seemingly time before was kind of tight during the RTO process. But I really like this. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Cheryl. A couple comments. I do like this. I think that there's a couple things that as a board we need to consider just in terms of how we function. It's going to be really important that people read the apps during the summer, because otherwise we're going to end up with a lot of apps at one time to read. And that's just, us managing our own time. And then the other things I think we need to really talk about how we handle second interviews and when we ask for second interviews, because that's what makes the timeline crunch, because you've got the new people coming in and then you're seeing people you saw last month. And so I think we need to really think about what's our criteria for whether or not we offer a second interview, and what does that second interview look like.
That's a very good point, Cheryl.
Chairman Krieger, this is Dave. Thank you, Melanie. That was a great job on this presentation. We have spent quite a bit of time talking about this internally and then also with leadership. Just want to bring up a few points. During the interview process, because it is pretty going to be a heavy lift, we will not be bringing you any renewal discussions or recommendations during that time. We will wait that until January. And the purpose, as Melanie said, is to give our schools a longer runway to get open. There's just not enough time for everything that needs to be done, particularly with their facility, and hopefully they get earlier start on recruiting. So that was another reason. And then the last we have to get it to the state board in June and they vote on July to meet the rule commission's guidelines. This is going to have to go to rules, and if we did not get it approved by July, it would be 2023 before we could propose this to you. So that's why we are discussing this right now, and I really do appreciate Melanie and her team for putting this together as well as they have.
Sounds good. I know that Melanie has gotten a lot of rounds of feedback on this, and it's been a process. So I want to say thanks for all of that, and I will not have the joy of engaging in this process, but I think it is really steps in the right direction to elongate the timeline that schools have to get open. I just think the more we can push on that to try to give schools more time to do this really hard thing that takes a long time, the better it'll be for applicants and, you know, ultimately for school startup.
Thank you, Chair. Quickly, I just want to call to the attention just one piece, again, for consideration, and it doesn't happen often, but the fast track replication interviews, if we were to receive those, we would actually have to schedule those CSAB interviews within the 120-day requirement. So I did link to the general statute there. That's the unknown. So that means that we would actually potentially, if there were fast track replications, have to have capacity interviews for those schools ahead of the interview months, if that makes sense.
Sounds good. Okay, great. So it sounds like we're ready to go ahead and vote on this.
I make a motion that we accept the new application timeline.
Little Pele, seconds.
Okay. Properly moved and second. Any discussion? All right. We'll take a roll call vote.
Terry Stoops.
Aye.
Lynn Kroger.
Aye.
Huddle Parlay.
Aye.
Sherry Reeves.
Aye.
Cheryl Turner.
Aye, and Bruce is here now.
Okay, Bruce Friend.
Aye.
Alex Quigley.
Aye.
Todd Godby.
Aye.
All right, it passes, and we will present this to State Board at their meeting next week. And I believe that's all we have on the agenda today.
And a reminder to CSAB members that our next meeting is June the 7th, I believe? Yes, June the 7th,
Yes.
which will be a face-to-face meeting. So remember, hopefully everybody can join us in Raleigh. Looking forward to seeing everybody. Thank you.
And Dave, which room will it be? 150 or upstairs?
Upstairs.
It'll be in the board.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Thanks.
Hey, for people who will have to be remote, will there be a remote option?
There will be. I will be working with tech to get that set up. They've been doing it for State Board, so there is a way to do that. So if you are participating remotely, you will simply log on the same way you do for these meetings through Cisco. And then most likely what you'll be seeing on your screen is any other remote participants, and then, you know, the materials like you're seeing now, but I do not think we'll be able to, you won't be able to see the boardroom, is my understanding. You'll just, you know, see what you're seeing now on screen, but you should be able to do it remotely just like you do now.
All right.
I move that we adjourn.
Give it 30 seconds.
All in favor, voice vote?
Aye.
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 Aye. See you 7th.
Have a happy Memorial Day.
Happy Memorial Day,
Yeah.
everyone.
Wonderful. Look forward to seeing you guys in person.
I know. Au revoir.